Hello everybody, today is Thursday and we are on page 5 of the Module 12 notes. So we had continued on talking about the macronutrients, and there's 3 of those that we actually get energy from, and those 3 are carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Nucleic acids, remember, those just help with DNA. It's not necessarily for energy. And so page 5, it was a continuation of the lipids. So just some more examples of the lipids: butter, vegetable oil, wax, even like candle wax. And then the uses, I had mentioned in the previous video that it's used for long-term energy storage. And this, we always think that the more fat we have, the worse it is, and that's not necessarily the case. Fat is still very, very important to us. Not only is it for long-term energy, but it is to insulate our bodies as well and to keep us warm. So this long-term energy, if we are not eating enough carbs to get energy, then our bodies start using the fat supply that we have. Also, if you are starving, then, like actually starving, not just hungry, but starving, then your body will actually go into starvation mode and use fat as its backup energy supply as well. So fat is still very, very needed. Now, proteins is the 3rd thing that we get from our food that actually provides us with energy. And it is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So these 4 elements will bond together to make one big protein molecule. Now, just like everything else, one molecule of a protein is called an amino acid. Why they call it that, I don't know, but amino acid is one protein molecule. So there are 9 essential amino acids that your body needs. So these, and you don't need to know these 9, but you just need to know that there are 9. And these amino acids you have to have for survival and to be healthy. Now, instead of one molecule, if you have 2 molecules of protein, it is called a dipeptide. So there's that di prefix again that means 2. So dipeptide. And then if you have multiple molecules of protein, it is called a polypeptide. And there's that poly prefix again that means many. And the way I like to think of these is protein starts with P, and these peptide suffix, they also start with P. So protein and peptides. So even if you're having trouble remembering peptide itself, if you see that on a multiple choice question, then you should be able to kind of recognize that peptide starts with P, and so does protein. And also you can use your notes in your study guide on your test anyways. So a peptide is just another name for a protein. Now, some examples of protein that is actually in our body, or that our food helps build in our body, is muscle, skin, enzymes. Enzymes is what helps us fight off infections, and that also allows us to do chemical reactions. For example, to digest our food or to do combustion. So these enzymes are very important to us, and enzymes are made up of proteins. Skin is made of proteins, and muscle is made of proteins. Now, what is protein actually used for? So protein not only provides a little bit of energy for us, but it is also for transport. So when I say transport, this is how our cells can transport throughout our body. Also signaling, it is how these cells can communicate with each other. And of course our body structure with muscle and skin. So proteins have a lot of important jobs. So they allow our cells to move from place to place. They allow our cells to communicate, and then they build up big parts of our body. Now, the nucleic acids, I'm not really going to go into a lot of detail with that because it is not used for energy. It is used to build up our DNA. So now here is just some vocabulary that we need to talk about that is in Module 12. So all this food that we are eating is to give us energy, of course. That's why we're talking about it. And to be considered alive, remember, one of these 7 characteristics that we have to have is to gain energy. And we do that by eating food. And then plants do that through photosynthesis. Now, how do our bodies use all that energy? Our temperature regulation is one of just the major ways that we use the energy. That is what makes humans so special, is because we are able to adapt to different surroundings. That is why we can live in the rainforest versus the desert. We can live in Alaska versus Arizona. So we can live in a lot of different places around the world because we have the ability to regulate our temperatures. So we are considered to be endothermic organisms. Endothermic means that you can regulate your internal temperature. So our muscles will expand and contract as needed to keep our temperature regulated. And endo, you can think of internal for internal temperature because we are able to regulate that. So you know how when you are cold, sometimes you will shiver. So shivering is caused by your muscles expanding and contracting to build up our body heat. And then also we are considered to be warm-blooded organisms. Warm-blooded means that we can regulate our internal temperatures. So that's what makes mammals, and especially humans, very special. Now, ectothermic is the opposite. Ectothermic does not have that ability. So ectothermic organisms cannot regulate their body temperatures at all. So whatever the temperature is outside, that is what their temperature is on the inside of their bodies, which sounds kind of miserable in the dead of winter. So that is why a lot of reptiles and amphibians will hibernate in the wintertime because they are not able to stay warm. So they have no choice but to go down deep into the earth to stay warm during the winter. So when it is cold outside, it is cold on the inside of their bodies. When it is warm outside, it is warm on the inside of their bodies. So, and that's another thing that they do when it is super, super hot outside. Sometimes you will see snakes and lizards out sunning themselves on rocks or even in the road. And that's usually when they get ran over. But they do that because they are warming themselves up. And then things like alligators, when they get too hot, they'll swim to the bottom of the water to stay cool. So any type of reptile and amphibian, they are all going to be ectothermic organisms. Ectothermic, which means that they are cold-blooded. So they cannot regulate their body temperature. So again, that is one of the many ways that God has made us so special, because we are able to regulate our body temperature, which is a blessing in disguise. So that will cover up page 5 for us. And the next video, I will actually finish up these notes for you completely. So stay tuned for pages 6, 7, and 8. Have a great day, everyone.